I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street.
Happy holidays, guys. It's that time of year again. The time where everybody rushes to Amazon to buy all their shit for all their friends and family. This year, since all of you are now my friends, I'm asking you for a favor. I don't need you to send me anything for Christmas, but I appreciate the thought. What I would like for you to do instead is to do all of your Amazon shopping through Amazon. That's easy, right? I'm not asking too much. There's one thing I'm going to ask you to do. To get to Amazon, I need you to go to FascinationStreetPod.com and click on the Amazon banner on my homepage. Nothing will be any different, and then do all of your Amazon shopping as you normally would. The only difference is that you're walking in through the door that's marked Fascination Street Podcast. It tells Amazon that you love me, and they throw a couple of shekels my way for everything you purchase. That's it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And happy holidays from Steve Owens and Fascination Street Podcast. From now until December 31st, 2018, the James Beard Foundation is accepting nominations for the 2019 James Beard Awards. And I invite all of you to join me in nominating Chef Stephen McHugh from Cured in San Antonio, Texas, for the 2019 James Beard Award for Best Chef Southwest. I've made it easy to do this, guys. If you go to FascinationStreetPod.com and look to the right of the page, there will be a photo of Chef Stephen McHugh. When you click on that photo, it will take you to the 2019 James Beard Award page. You will need to create an account, but that'll only take about 60 seconds and they don't ask for much. It's really just a name and password kind of a thing. Once you've created an account, it will take you to the nominations page. From there, you'll click on the 2019 Restaurant and Chef Awards, and then complete the submission form, making sure to select Best Chef Southwest as the category. It's that easy, guys. All it takes is 5 minutes of your time, and I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you in advance, and now let's get to this week's episode. Welcome back, folks. This episode is with Angela Modifica, also known as TheStringSparrow. Angie is a luthier in Connecticut. In this episode, she tells us what exactly a luthier is and what a luthier does, as well as why she decided to become a luthier. Angie also talks about some of the more interesting projects she's worked on, including something that sometimes explodes. Weird. Enjoy, folks. This is my interview with an actual luthier, Angela Modifica, TheStringSparrow.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast. Angie, say your last name for me.
My last name's Modifica. I usually just go by Angie, honestly.
Yes, we're just going to call you Angie.
Angie works.
Because that sounds like a mouthful. So, Angie, you live in Connecticut, right?
Yes, I live in Terryville.
Okay, now, I think you're going to be the fourth guest I've had on from Connecticut, and so I have a question for you.
Okay.
Have you read the book, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court?
I think I read that book back in maybe sometime in middle school or something like that. Yes. We saw the play.
Yes. Okay, great. All of those things are fantastic. So, of the three previous Connecticutians that I have had on, one of them had never heard of it. One of them had heard of it but not read it, and the other one, like you, had read it when they were in like middle school. So, all right, cool. And
yeah.
The reason that
there was a play too and a movie.
Yes. And the reason that I was curious, especially after the first time that I asked somebody and they had never even heard of it, I was like, I live in San Antonio, Texas, and it was required reading when I was in school. So what are they doing over there in Connecticut?
I don't know. I'm blaming the school system.
That's what I'm doing. Okay, Angie. So Were you born and raised in Connecticut?
Yeah, I was born in Berlin, which is the geographical center of Connecticut, and I was raised there, and then I moved to Terryville.
So what made you move to Terryville?
Not wanting to live at home anymore.
But yet you just moved down the street. I mean, Connecticut's a really tiny state, right? So you didn't move too far away?
It is, but when there's no direct highway to where you live, it's further away. Terryville doesn't have a direct highway to it because allegedly whoever was the mayor at the point when they were building the interstate got into a fight with somebody else in politics, and they decided to say, hey, all right, fine, then you don't get the highway. So everything's pretty far away, even though it's close enough. It's like 15 minutes to a grocery store, which sucks in the summer when you want to buy ice cream, but...
Does it get hot there?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's probably like anywhere else where we still have, cold winter, a really hot summer. We get all the seasons, which I like, so...
Let me assure you that is not like everywhere else. Here in San Antonio, Texas, we have 2 seasons, summer and winter, but winter lasts about 3 weeks.
And it probably doesn't get nearly as cold as it does here. Right? I've seen videos of you guys on YouTube getting like a millimeter of snow, and it's like you call the day off for it.
That is the truth. And sometimes not even snow. Like if there's just a little bit of ice on any road anywhere, the whole city shuts down.
Yeah, you wouldn't like it here. Unless you like snow. In that case, you'd love it. But
well, I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for about 1.5 years, and we had 2 winters there where it was an unimaginable amount of snow. And everybody who lived there was like, oh, this never happens. But then they also said that the following year when it happened again. But, I was born and raised in San Antonio my whole life. And so we drove in there on like a couple of days before Christmas. And I was there 10 minutes before I saw more snow than I had ever seen in my whole life. And
wow. Yeah, my brother actually used to live down there too, and he never saw snow when he lived there.
Where did your brother live?
Bowling Green.
Okay, so your brother got the heck away from your parents, and you just sort of moved down the street. What's going on there?
Well, I like Connecticut. I do like it. I like how everything is pretty close. I know I was just complaining about how my house is kind of a little further back than some other places in Connecticut, but everything is fairly close enough. Everybody knows each other. I like this state. I do. It's pretty. I like the landscape. I like the seasons. The people are pretty cool. It's a nice place to live. And I have lived outside of Connecticut before, and I came back here because it's where I belong, I think.
Well, that makes sense. You said you lived elsewhere other than Connecticut?
Yeah, I spent a short time in California. In the northern part of California, which actually reminded me quite a bit of Connecticut as far as the people are. It was nice out there, but I got homesick, I think. I missed everybody here.
Gotcha. Well, where did you go to school?
I went through all my schooling in Berlin up until after high school. I went to the University of Bridgeport in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And then I went to school. I transferred to UConn, and I took a few courses at Central Connecticut State University, and that's it.
And what was your major? What were you studying?
Oddly, nothing to do with guitars. I started out in journalism at the University of Bridgeport. I really wanted to become a journalist out of nowhere for some reason. And I spent about 1 year or 2 doing that. And then I decided journalism's just too cutthroat for me. And I wanted to study biology and be a veterinarian. Like, that was what I wanted to do since I was a kid, really. So I decided to switch over and do that. And the University of Bridgeport didn't have the best biology program that I was looking for. So I went to UConn because they're pretty based in veterinary science there. So I studied that for a while. And then I ran out of money to go to school. So I stopped going to school, and I started picking up random courses at Central when I could. But I found guitar work through my best friend, Mike Modifica, and his dad owned a guitar store the whole time I knew him. So one day his dad decided he needed some help at the store, and he asked me and Mike, and the rest is history, I guess. And that was about 8 years ago.
All right, cool. So thus far, the listeners don't know what it is that you do. So you You are make sure I'm saying this right. You're a luthier?
A luthier, yes.
A
And
luthier.
a lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about when I tell them I'm a luthier. Even people in the music field aren't always sure what that is.
Was it working at the store that helped you decide that that was going to be your career? Because you've been doing it for a while, so let's assume this is where you're going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And it is absolutely my career now, and I plan on doing this for the rest of my life. I never expected to be working on guitars ever, or really be around them the way I am. My dad was an engineer, so that might be where I got some of the skill from, just naturally, I think, was from him. But I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Well, I guess my question was, when did you know that this was going to be your passion, your life's work?
When did I know? I guess just through working at the store and being around it long enough, I realized I really like building things. I really like to create things. And so it goes beyond guitars too. I like making little miniature sets and stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. I just like to create things and see my actual work in front of me go from nothing to something. And the more I got to do that at the store, the more I realized that maybe this is where I really do belong, working just around anything I could really create.
Did you say Dungeons and Dragons figures?
Yes. And miniature sets and that sort of deal, yeah.
You're a nerd?
Do you play?
No, because I'm not a
I'm
nerd.
I don't know. Nerds rule the world, though, right?
Yes, they do.
I guess I'm kind of a nerd. I like to read and I like to do nerdy stuff, absolutely. It's fun to put yourself in a different world, you know?
I do know. What exactly does a luthier do for my listeners?
I'm exclusive to guitars and basses and things of that sort, but a luthier basically is a person who repairs instruments and builds instruments. I usually mostly work with stringed instruments, though. Mandolins, basses, guitars, violins, things of that sort.
A luthier is anybody who makes any instrument?
Well, you repair them or you build them, yes. You could do it with any instrument.
I really thought that the luthier term was reserved for the stringed instruments and the guitars and whatnot. I learned something new today.
Well, maybe you're right. I don't know. I always assumed it was just, any stringed instrument then, yeah. I guess I said it wrong. No, you're right. It is any stringed instrument, but I don't deal much with like violins and things like that. So like there's like guitar luthier, violin luthier. I don't do like band instruments, for example. Like I don't know anything about cellos, things like that. So
sure. How did you learn how to repair these instruments?
I didn't really know what I was doing at all at first. So I had to do a lot of research on my own. When I say that Mike's dad needed help at the store, him and I actually ended up covering the store completely without him because he needed to leave the store for a while. So I didn't know anything at first at all. And I researched. I did online research, I read books, I read down to the little pamphlets that would come in cases with guitars. So after a while of doing that, I started practicing on people's guitars. And it's sort of like any other work where the more you do it, the more you know. So we also had a luthier working in the store, and his name's Mike Muscagna. And he taught me pretty much everything else that I know now, and that was through years of apprenticing with him.
That sounds amazing. What kind of repair do you do to an instrument?
Well, sometimes people bring in stuff that they have a broken headstock. You've got to put it back together. Weather changes, and in the weather, wood moves, and people will end up with split bodies. Just wear and tear on a guitar can end up making the electronic stuff working. Pick guards fall off. The glue dries out, and things fall off the guitar. The nut can fall off the guitar. Things break. Lots of things break. So it really depends on what the scenario is, but pretty much whatever's wrong with it, you break it, I fix it, is kind of my slogan. So.
I saw on Instagram the other day you were putting frets on the guitar.
Yeah, that's actually a very common thing that I do lately. So over time, they use steel strings on a guitar. It's going to wear into the frets. And eventually they wear down so much that they need to be taken out and put back in with new ones because they'll end up with grooves in the middle of them. And if you have any kind of imperfection like that on a fret, it's going to give you pretty crummy sounding guitar. So you'll get a lot of rattle, you'll get a lot of buzz. So you got to take them out and put new ones in, and then it's good to go again.
That sounds amazing. I'm constantly, like every once in a while, I'll just pull up your Instagram account and just check out all the crazy shit that you're doing to these guitars.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun, though.
Can you play a guitar?
I'm not the best guitarist. I'm more into bass, but I can play enough to be able to figure out what's wrong with one for sure. I'm not a guitarist. I'm more a bass player.
Sweet. Now, all of the other luthiers that I have talked to before in my life have tattoos. Do you have any interesting tattoos?
I have tattoos. I have 3 tattoos. I don't know how interesting they are, but my first tattoo, I was 18, and I went to West Hartford, and I got my generic star, pink and black, on my hip. And then a few years later, I was on a road trip, and I got Exhale on my forearm, and I have a little black cat on the back of my neck.
The word?
And yes, it was addicting. I'm sorry?
The word exhale?
Exhale, yes. So it's a constant reminder to just keep breathing, you know?
Interesting. What's the most outrageous thing that you've had to repair at the store?
The most outrageous thing I've had to repair, I can tell you maybe the most scary thing I've had to repair was a very old mandolin from the 1800s. I actually think I did put a picture of this on my Instagram, come to think of it. Very, very old. Probably the oldest thing I've ever worked on. So that was scary because they're so old. But something outrageous that I learned while doing this job was older guitars that have a certain type of pick guard can explode. And that was pretty scary.
When you say explode,
it's like dynamite almost yeah, they'll actually start on fire.
What will? The actual guitar?
The pick guards on some of them.
What
they're made of.
Really?
Yeah. It's like dynamite that's been sitting too long, and occasionally it has been known to start on fire in people's cases even. So
like just all by itself for no reason?
I always relate it to like being like dynamite, or maybe if you move it the wrong way. It's never happened to me, thank God, but I've heard of it happening, and I'm not really sure how, but I know the material itself can be explosive on very old vintage guitars.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I hope you charge more for those.
Now there's no DT. I don't know what I can say here, if I'm allowed to say bad words or not.
Oh, you can say whatever you want, man.
There's no dick tax for things like
that. Oh, wow. That's funny.
We call it the dick tax, but we don't actually give the dick tax.
Nice. So when people come in, like, has anybody ever come in and just handed you a pile of pieces and you're just like, what in the fuck happened here? Like, are you ever just like crazy curious about how this instrument got into this shape?
Yeah, honestly, people do weird things, and I like to not even ask sometimes because I feel like maybe I don't even want to know sometimes. There was one person I do remember, and I had to put his guitar back together, and it was in pieces, literal pieces. It was an acoustic guitar, and the body had split away from the sides, because there's the back, there's the sides, and there's the front. And the front is called the top. The top had split completely off of the sides, and so had the back. And I don't know what was going on inside the guitar. The wiring was just a complete mess, and allegedly no one touched these things beforehand. So I don't know how some of this stuff ends up. I think people lie and they try to do their own thing sometimes, and then they mess it up and they don't want to admit it. So it's like being a doctor. Like, it's like house. You're better off just not even asking and just diagnosing on your own sometimes. Yes, I have been handed a guitar that was in absolute pieces for sure. And I really don't know how it happened.
It sounds like a bunch of 4-year-olds. What happened here? I don't know. Nobody touched anything. It just happened.
Yeah, no, I've had a dad blame his kid once. He's like, no, my kid did it. I'm like, all right.
Sweet.
Sure, he did.
When you're not busy repairing instruments, do you actually make them?
Well, part of the job is to build guitars too. So if people want something built for them, we do that. Yeah, absolutely. Like people will give you parts and then you put them together. Sometimes you have to cut out your own parts because they don't exist, or you have to make templates for things that don't exist. Like a lot of this job, you actually make your own tools for too. So I found that fun because my dad was a tool maker. So it was pretty cool to be able to show him like, oh, I made this tool for my job and see what he says about it.
What did he say about it?
He's actually pretty proud of me. I mean, he works for Stanley Tools for most of his life now. And he actually, to plug my dad a little bit, he invented the Fat Max tape roller. So I have that to live up to.
He did?
He did. He has the patent for it. Well, he would if Stanley didn't have it. But
Yes.
He did design that through Stanley Tools.
How cool is that?
It's pretty cool. You know, I love to talk about that. A lot of my customers are like, oh, my God, you got to get me one. And I'm like, go to Home Depot.
Go get your own. That is very cool. So do you make ukuleles?
I've never made a ukulele. No, I have not. But I think we've shared a little bit with each other about how you can go online and find a really shitty kit and make one yourself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, did you do it?
No.
Yeah, it's hard to like make your own, honestly. If you don't really know too much about it, you can make one for a kid and get away with it with something okay, I guess. But there are measurements required for every instrument you're making. You can't just put this neck on that body. You got to know what's going to work right with each scale. So like certain necks can't fit certain guitars and still sound right. You'll never get them intonated. It'll just be a mess. So
Sweet. Is there anything you won't work on? Like if somebody brings something in, maybe a mandolin from the 1700s.
I would actually be really excited to do that. As scary as it could be, I'm really slow with projects. I don't rush anything. I'm not so slow that people have to wait forever to get stuff back, but I would be excited about that. I don't think I'd turn away a job unless I knew there was no way I could possibly do it. Like I just don't know enough about it, for example. But no, I try not to turn away anyone because to me, like a $10,000 guitar is just as valuable as a $100 guitar. To the customer or to the client, it could mean the world to them. So I'm not going to turn away a customer ever. If I can help somebody out, I would love to. You got to keep the music going.
Oh, I like that. Got to keep the music going. Now, let me ask you this. Is your town a small town? Well, actually, the town where your store is. What's the roughly the population of that town?
Well, I work in Orange, and it's a fairly big town, I would say. Very woodsy, but there's not too many people. It's not like New Haven where there's like a billion people. That's exaggerating, but it's sort of like there's a lot of people, but you wouldn't know it, I guess, because it's all pretty spread out. I'm not really sure how big of the population would be. I wouldn't be able to accurately guess.
All right. Well, here's why I'm asking. Over the summer, I had the opportunity to go visit a small town in Wyoming. And this was something that I had never seen, and that is that this town was so small that a Starbucks closed.
Wow. No, there's a Starbucks in Orange.
And also they had a Sonic, and that closed also. And so I guess my question is, there's so many guitar players and stringed instrument players in even your whole state. It blows me away that there would be enough to keep this store open for so long.
No, there's definitely enough. I mean, and Connecticut has the advantage of being between New York and Boston, and we get the flow of traffic in between both of them. So you get musicians from everywhere. And because I work with Mike Muscagna, he's been in the business for 40 years now, or maybe more, but at least 40 years. And so his clientele is actually global, and we get a lot of people from everywhere, all around the country, all around the world. So we don't really just rely on Orange or just Connecticut, but we do appreciate everybody here. So
Well, that makes a ton of sense.
yeah. You just struck a thought with me, though, because I remember I had driven through Wyoming, too, and I remember seeing signs that say population 9, and I'm like, all right, 9 people. Does that constitute a town? But I guess it does.
Wow, that doesn't constitute a household down here.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying.
That's
I thought that was
crazy.
funny.
I interviewed a lady a couple weeks ago who was the youngest of 12 children, so...
12. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that's more than that town holds. So
That's crazy. Let's just say somebody walks in without parts and just says, "Hey, I want you to make me a guitar." And I'm sure you would have a bunch of questions like, what are you going to use it for? What kind of guitar? Whatever. Once you get all that figured out and you start building some fool a guitar, what name do you put on the guitar? Do you put Mike's name on it? Do you put your name on it? Like, what would be the brand name of this guitar that you made?
if it weren't made from product brand parts, you're saying? If it was like a custom build?
Yes, like if somebody just walked in with a
Right.
box of toothpicks
Like
and said, "Hey, make me a guitar."
If they had a box of toothpicks, that might be the situation. I say, no, we're not going to help you here. But so the brand name, we go Big Mike's Custom. That's his brand name.
Interesting.
Big Mike's Custom Guitars.
Very cool. When's the last time you made one of those?
I think the last time he made one, I've just done personal maybe touches on him, but I've never actually built one of his. I think probably sometime this month for sure. And I believe he's currently in the process of making another one at the moment for sure. Because yeah, he is. Because he just showed me a few stickers that we weren't too happy with. The decals that are going to go on the headstock, and maybe I shouldn't mention that. But no, yeah, he's actually currently building two. Come to think of it, right now, this current time, it's frequent for him to be building his own custom builds for sure.
Super dope.
They're really nice.
Has anybody ever come in to the shop and you're just like, holy shit, I know you?
What do you mean? You know, I like a famous person, or?
Yeah, somebody that you know
Oh,
because
yeah.
of their music.
Absolutely. In Wallingford, there's the Oakdale, so a lot of musicians will be playing the Oakdale, and because we're so close, I've met the keyboardist from Yes. I know Ian Anderson has been in there quite a bit, because he plays the Oakdale often. Yeah, I mean, I meet a lot of people, to be honest. So there's quite a few coming in and out. Elliot Lewis is currently in and out all the time. He's got a lot of work for us. So yeah, I've met quite a few people, but I try to just treat everybody like they're all the same to me, because, well, it's the same as the guitars I was talking about, like a $10,000 one's worth the same as 100. You know, a customer who's not famous is just as important to me. So
that leads me to this question. So if you try to treat everybody the same, does that mean that you treat Joe Schmo like Ian Anderson, or do you treat Ian Anderson like Joe Schmo?
More probably Ian Anderson like Joe Schmo, I would say, because I feel like if I were famous, I wouldn't want to be. So I feel like people do appreciate it more when you treat them like they're just a person, because they are just a person, and maybe their musical talent is phenomenal, but when they want you to look at their guitar, they don't want you asking for an autograph. They want you to look at their guitar. And I think it's important to remain professional when you're around people like that, for sure. And I believe they appreciate it.
Very cool. I used to work at a restaurant a long time ago, and William Shatner came in.
Oh, I love him.
Like, I mean, this was probably a month or less after his wife drowned, and everybody was super excited, of course, but nobody would say anything. Everybody was just all cool. And then at the end, when he signed his credit card bill, the waitress kept the receipt because it had his signature on it. And she got fired.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Isn't that crazy?
That's funny. Oh, I wonder what Bill would have to say about that. I love William Shatner. I love Star Trek so much. I've watched every single Star Trek series pretty much at this point. So, but he's one of my favorite. I love him.
Sure.
I think I would have done the same thing, though. I would have taken that and run. I think it's worth it. Worth it to get fired for that.
Yeah, you're like, there's tables at other restaurants. That's fine.
Exactly.
Let's say somebody wanted you to make them a ukulele.
This ukulele, okay.
Would you start with a log
No, I would love to. You can start with a quarter cut or a slab cut. Slab cut's preferred because it's a whole piece of wood. Quarter cut is what you'd use to make guitars. Most guitars are made with quarter cut out of just pieces that are put together. I would love to start with just a blank piece of wood like that, but normally when you're buying parts for something like that, they'll come pre-made to a point. You can buy a top, you can buy a back, you can buy the sides, you can buy the whole body, you can buy the neck separate. There's various ways of building a guitar. I would probably have to start with parts that were already pre-made to a point, and then it's about fitting it at that point. But no, I would love to start with a log, though. That'd be sick.
So do you mean sort of like on, I don't know if they're even still on, but there used to be those motorcycle shows where they would make motorcycles and they'd go grab a frame from over there and then they'd go pick out some different handlebars from over there and like that?
Yeah, it could be that way. Absolutely. That's what most people do because it's cheaper to go that route when stuff's already made that way. And it helps you figure out, like I was saying, things have to fit a certain way for a certain scale so that everything sounds right. So most people prefer to just go online pretty much at this point and pick out the parts that they want. We'll tell them if they're going to work or not. And we'll also do our own end of sanding and cutting and routing to make sure if the parts aren't perfectly lined up that they will be. I think it's pretty rare, for me at least at this point in my career, to start with just a blank piece of wood. But I would love to do that. That would be amazing.
And so when you do custom jobs like that, does that mean that y'all painted and coated and all that stuff too?
At the end, yeah.
So you personally don't deal with the lacquer and the paint and stuff like that?
With lacquer, yes. On neck, whenever we have a neck that's brand new, sometimes they come in without any finish on them at all. And you absolutely should put something on it. We'll do lacquer. We spray lacquer just as you would with paint. I know Mike Muscagna used to deal with painting, but it's mostly just repair now that we're focused on. We don't delve into that anymore. But lacquer, yes. If you sand something off by accident, you've got to re-lacquer that. So we certainly do.
Interesting. What's the plan? Are you going to stab Mike in the heart and then take over his business? Are you going to open your own business? What's going on? What's the plan?
No, I don't have any plans to kill anybody, but no, yeah. Well, one day, Mike will want to retire at some point, and at the moment, we are partners in this business. And until the day he retires, we will be. Once he retires, I hope that his clientele would allow me to take them on completely. But it is my goal to continue the business while he's alive and after. And I always tell him I'll probably die first anyway. So.
Well, that's really cool. So you went from just helping out around the shop to a partner.
Yeah, and it was a long time before he actually would take me on as an apprentice. And for years and years and years, I asked him, please, let me come work with you. Let me come work with you. And he was always like, no, maybe next year. And then one day he decided, I'm going to finally have you come work with me. I guess it took a few years of proving that I actually wanted to do it, because it is there are very few people that do this job. And he didn't want to just take a bet and hope for the best. He wanted to make sure I was serious. And so once he realized that I was, he allowed me to become his apprentice. And eventually he considers me his partner as a luthier and no longer an apprentice now. So that was really exciting for me.
Well, that's very exciting just to hear. That's awesome. Well, Angie, as we're winding down, will you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, actually, I only have Instagram, and I'm Angie Sparrow, TheStringSparrow on Instagram. I do not use any other social media currently besides Instagram.
Gotcha. Do you want to plug the store since you're a partner?
Yeah, the store is called Joe's Guitars. The store itself is located in Wallingford, Connecticut, on North Colony Road, Joe's Guitars. And the repair shop that I work out of, it's just a repair shop in Orange, but we take work through Joe's Guitars. So,
is there a website? Let's just say maybe there's been a lot of musicians on this show that could need a good luthier someday.
Don't have a website. Joe's Guitars has a Facebook page under Joe's Guitars. We're a little old school, I guess. I don't know. It's like one of those things. I'm just so focused doing other things that I don't really spend much time online, I guess. We don't have a website or anything. But if people do need a luthier, they can absolutely email me. I take contacts through email, and I'd be more than happy to give that out if that was okay.
Sure. Hit it.
All right. My email is musicwillsaveyou, MUSICWILLSAV3Y0U @gmail.com.
Did you say SAV3?
Yeah, Y0U. Yeah, it's spelled that way. But it's spelled out musicwillsaveyou @gmail.com or at TheStringSparrow @gmail.com.
Why didn't you give that one out? That one's way easier.
Well, I use both. Let's just go with TheStringSparrow @gmail.com. There you go.
That is hilarious.
You could just cut out that other part, right?
That is so funny. What's your email address? It's QZLF3.
Most complicated
9.
thing you could think of.
You're so funny. Well, Angie, as we're getting out of here, is there anything that I didn't ask you or that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I think you pretty much asked me everything I would have hoped you would have, really. Just keep playing music. Just keep playing. Keep practicing. 15 minutes a day, you'll be a rock star. So.
She's talking to all of you people listening, not me, because y'all all know I don't even know which end of a drumstick to hold.
Yeah, see, that's right there, though. That's what I'm talking about. You can. You just have to practice.
I can't. I can't do it.
You can.
I can't.
Then pick a different instrument. You're on the wrong instrument.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
You'll find one.
I'm looking for a sweet banjo.
A banjo? There you go. Play banjo. Try playing banjo. Try playing harmonica if you don't think you can do strings. There's an instrument for everybody if you try.
The only person who can legitimately play a harmonica is John Popper from Blues Traveler. Everybody else is terrible.
Oh,
at
yeah. He was good. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
My wife and I are actually going to go see them this Friday in San Antonio.
Awesome.
Very excited about that.
You better have some pictures of that then. That's pretty cool.
Well, we're not going to meet him. I'm sure we're going to be sitting in the parking lot because it's going to be such a big place. But my pictures are going to be shit, so there's no reason to even take it.
At least enjoy yourself.
I've been waiting for this dude to come to San Antonio for years, so I'm very excited. I believe that you are friends with a previous guest of the show. Do you want to say hi and give a shout out?
I'm sorry, you cut out. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sweet. How's that feel?
Must be how you feel, I guess.
I said I believe that you are friends with a previous guest of the show. Did you want to say hello and give a shout out?
Oh, Brittany Quagan. Yeah, best-selling author. Brittany Quagan, absolutely. Hi. Go check out her book, Ren the Awakening.
Yeah, guys. Y'all know what's up. Click through us to get to Amazon, all that stuff. All right, Angie, I want to thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to you. This was a long time in the works, and then I screwed it all up right at the end, so much apologies.
Oh, no, it's fine. No apologies needed. Don't worry about it. Thank you for the good conversation. That was great.
You're welcome. I would have felt terrible if you were hurrying home and you got eaten by a bear.
There are bears around here, but we're pretty good when I'm in the car, I think. So I'll just drive faster. No, we're good. It all worked out perfectly.
Remember I told you I went to Wyoming during the summer, and my wife and I drove from wherever we were in Wyoming to a wedding in Colorado. And when we were driving, we kind of left late, so it was a little bit dark and whatever. And so we were driving, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. Actually, no, it was probably like 11 at night, but there was no lights, there was no moon, and our headlights barely worked, so it felt like it was 2 o'clock in the morning. But I saw a bear.
Was it a black bear or a brown bear?
I don't know, because it was running away from me, but alongside me. And I was too freaked, because I was in a Mini Cooper.
Yeah.
And so,
can those even outrun a bear?
Right? And I was going, I don't know, 70 in the pitch black, and my wife was asleep or trying to fall asleep and I could barely see. And then I saw that. And by the time my brain registered what it was, I was past it and I sure as hell wasn't going to stop.
No, yeah, I wouldn't stop either. But although I did stop for a bear recently, but in that scenario, I would just keep going.
Yeah. Did you say you stopped for a bear recently?
Yeah, up the street from me, there was a bear when I was driving. I left my house. I'm driving down the street for a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden there's this big black bear coming out from the pond, going across the street, and I'm like, and I had the same reaction where I'm like, taking a second, am I really looking at a bear right now? And then I actually did get some photos of its butt, and stopped my car and watched it walk into the woods. And they're so quick, but they're so quiet, I noticed. For such a big creature, they're so quiet. But it was beautiful. It was really cool.
Well, this one I would assume was probably a teenager because it wasn't giant and it wasn't little, but it was running on the road, like alongside me. And I have to say, they really are that cute. Like it ran, like, you know, I was just seeing its butt also, but it was the cutest butt.
Yeah, I know. They really got the teddy bear perfect. They are really cute.
It's pretty
They're
crazy.
gorgeous. And I'm just so amazed at how gentle, at least black bears. I know brown bears that can be pretty violent, but I think black bears are very, very docile, and they're kind of afraid of people. And they're just so quiet for such a huge animal. They're just noiseless. And it was amazing to see one so close finally.
Well, who would have thought that we would have ended this episode of the podcast with you being super racist against bears?
Oh,
You're all the black
I love
ones
them all.
the black ones are cool,
Yeah.
but the brown ones, they'll get you.
Nah, yeah, right. Be scared of those. No, I love all animals. All animals, all colors, all species. They're all good. So as long as they're not eating me, we're good.
That's how I feel. All right, Angie, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day to make this happen. I really, really appreciate it, and I want you to have a great rest of your week, okay?
You're very welcome, and thank you. I appreciate you taking your time as well. So thank you.
You're silly. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye.
Nice talking to you. Bye.
Hey guys, this is Steve Owens from Fascination Street Podcast here with a very important message. I'm awesome. I bet you thought I was going to say something else, but nope. What's important here is that I am awesome. I started this show because I truly believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear those stories. In the short time that I've been doing this show, I've interviewed actors, directors, writers, inventors, podcasters, musicians, pro athletes, Olympic athletes, actual war heroes, even a Bond girl and a luthier, whatever the hell that is, and of course, regular people. From people who wanted to be stars but never gave it a real try, to big company CEOs and people who got to meet their favorite president. I love getting to meet and speak with people who have a story to tell. I feel like everyone does, and it's my job to get them to tell it. You never know who my next guest will be. An Academy Award-winning actor, a platinum-selling musician, or your own mother-in-law. But one thing is for certain, you will be fascinated by their story. So come take a walk with me down Fascination Street. You can find Fascination Street Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and of course, FascinationStreetPod.com. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.